If you aren't already aware, Death Valley is home to the hottest temperature ever recorded on Earth, which means you need to be prepared when you visit.
That temperature was 134.1 degrees Fahrenheit, and it was recorded in 1913.
More recently, though, in July 2024, they also reported the highest monthly average temperature ever recorded at 108.5 degrees, and yes, that includes the nighttime low temperatures. And they spent 9 consecutive days with a high temperature of over 125 degrees.
So the heat here in the summertime is seriously no joke.
If you want to visit in the winter, which is the more popular option, then that's a different story, but that's a topic for another video. In this video, we're going to share with you the 10 essential tips that you need to know before you go to Death Valley to keep you safe and healthy while you explore despite the heat.
Hi, I'm Adam.
And I'm Phoebe.
And we're the couple behind In the Great Wide. We recently visited Death Valley for the first time, and the first thing everyone tells you is tip number 1 on our list,
which is keep extra water in your car.
Number 1, keep extra water in your car. Staying hydrated is priority number 1 in Death Valley.
Yeah, recommended daily intake for water in a normal setting is at least half a gallon per person per day. But in this heat, you'll probably want to double that.
You want to bring more water than you think you need.
Yeah.
You think you brought enough? No, bring more.
Tip number 2 is if your car breaks down or overheats, stay with your vehicle. Do not go walking in search of help.
It seems counterintuitive, but the theory behind this is that your vehicle is more likely to be found than you are alone wandering through the desert.
Yeah, and your car also provides shade, and you should have water in there to keep yourself hydrated.
Remember all that extra water you brought? It's in your car.
Yeah. To keep your car to help keep your car from overheating in the first place, one thing you can do is turn your AC off and roll your windows down while you're driving around instead, even though I know it's going to be the last thing you want to do, but it's an option.
Going without AC for a little while is better than being stuck in the middle of nowhere.
For much longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of the possibility of your car breaking down, tip number 3, have a spare tire.
Yeah, the roads can be rough in Death Valley at times, and you are really far away from any kind of mechanic shop, so the last thing you want to do is be stranded in the desert with a flat tire.
The other last thing you want to have happen with your car is to run out of gas, so tip number 4, enter the park with a full tank of gas.
Death Valley is huge, and seeing the attractions requires a lot of driving around. We drove 400 plus miles inside the park alone over the 3 or 4 days that we were there.
It didn't even really feel like it was 400 plus miles, but it's huge. The place is huge.
Yeah, and there are vast stretches where there are absolutely no services, sometimes for like 70 miles at a time, so you need to keep a close eye on your gas gauge.
If you do need to fill up while you're in the park, head to Stovepipe Wells, where the gas is significantly cheaper than at Furnace Creek.
Yeah, so just to put it into perspective, gas in Lone Pine, which is a small town just outside of the park where we filled up, was $5.55, and at Stovepipe Wells it was $5.89, but at Furnace Creek it was $7.03.
$7.03 for 1 gallon of gas.
It was a crazy, crazy difference. So that leads into tip number 5, which is, as a general rule, everything is going to be cheaper at Stovepipe Wells.
If you need ice, firewood, food, whatever, head to Stovepipe Wells to grab it instead of Furnace Creek because the prices are noticeably lower in Stovepipe Wells.
Significantly.
Yeah.
Tip number 6 is to make sure that you pay your park entry fee. Most national parks have gates as you're entering the park where you pay your entry fee, but Death Valley does not.
Instead, you'll need to go to either the Furnace Creek Visitor Center, the ranger station in Stovepipe Wells, or one of the many kiosks that are stationed around the park at places like Badwater Basin.
We'll put a link in the description to the page on the National Park Service website where you can find all the kiosk locations and the current prices.
Please don't be that person that doesn't pay the park entry fee. The money goes to keeping the park open.
It's a good cause.
Please pay the fee.
Yeah. Don't be that person.
Yeah.
But once you have paid your fee, tip number 7 is to take your receipt to the Furnace Creek Visitor Center to get a free paper map of the park.
There is very little cell signal throughout the park, especially once you get away from the visitor center. The only place that we had service was inside the visitor center, so get a paper map. It'll help.
The paper map is key, for sure.
Tip number 8. Do a little bit of pre-planning of what you want to see so you can group activities together that are physically closer to each other on the same day.
Yeah, like I said, Death Valley is huge. It's actually the largest national park in the contiguous. I always struggle with that word.
Contiguous.
United States. It's 5,270 square miles, which is 3.4 million acres. It's huge.
It's big. If you're spending more time in the park than just a day trip, we recommend figuring out what you want to do in the areas south of Furnace Creek for one day, like Badwater Basin and Artist Palette and Zabriskie Point. Then head to the area around Stovepipe Wells, and to the west of that another day to check out like the Mesquite Flat Sand Dunes, Mosaic Canyon, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and if you're heading further north to some of the attractions up there, like the Yubi Hibi Crater or Scotty's Castle, definitely plan on spending most, if not all, of your day up there because it can be quite a ways to drive.
But with all that being said, tip number 9, avoid being out in the afternoon heat as much as possible.
It's best to be done with any strenuous activities, such as hiking, before 10 a.m.
Yeah, keep in mind that the heat can linger for hours after the sun goes down. You have temperatures of still in the 90s when it's 2 o'clock in the morning, so just be aware.
Or even higher than that.
Yeah.
It's intense in the summertime.
Yeah.
And last but never least, tip number 10, take extra sunscreen and a hat.
Use sunscreen that is easy to reapply because you're going to be needing it and reapplying it a lot.
Yeah, and I don't want to hear all this nonsense about, well, I don't get sunburned, I don't need to wear sunscreen, because skin cancer is real, guys, so just wear sunscreen, please.
Yeah, you don't have to be sunburned to get skin cancer, so put on your sunscreen.
Please. But I really hope that all of that doesn't scare you off from visiting Death Valley, because it is a surprisingly beautiful place.
The landscape there is unique and otherworldly. It's really amazing.
It really shows off how diverse the terrain of our country is.
There's a lot of history, and if all else fails, sunsets in the desert are spectacular.
We also have another video coming up with more practical tips for Death Valley that we came up with during our trip that no one told us beforehand. So please consider subscribing to our channel so you don't miss that video.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the Great Wide somewhere.